I was standing outside Mom's bedroom, balancing a tray of soup and crackers, when I saw something that froze me in place. My brother, Jason, was kneeling next to her bed, his hand reaching beneath the mattress, like he was searching for something. At first, I thought he was tucking in the sheets or maybe grabbing a dropped tissue, but then I saw the glint of plastic packaging in his hand. He was stealing her pain patches. I walked in slowly, setting the tray on the side table, without saying a word. He hadn't noticed me yet. My heart was pounding, but I tried to stay calm. "What are you doing?" I asked quietly. Jason jumped, the patches clutched in his hand. "It's not what it looks like," he said, standing up quickly. "Really? Because it looks exactly like you're stealing Mom's medication." He hesitated momentarily, then shoved the patches into his hoodie pocket. "She's not going to miss a few." I stared at him in disbelief. "She's dying, Jason. She needs those. That's not just some over-the-counter stuff. It's the only thing that helps her sleep through the night." He looked down, then up again, his face changing from panic to something uglier, like he was tired of pretending. "You know what? Fine. Yeah, I've been taking them. Every night after she falls asleep, I kiss her forehead and grab a couple." "Is that what you want to hear?" I felt sick. "Why?" I whispered. "I owe money," he said flatly. "A lot. And this stuff sells fast. You think I like doing it? You think I don't feel awful?" "Not enough to stop," I shot back. That's when we both heard the soft creak of the hallway floor behind us. Mom was standing there in her robe, her face pale, lips trembling. "Jason," her voice cracked. He turned around slowly, like a kid caught red-handed. "Tell me that's not true," she said, her eyes darting to his pocket. "Please, tell me you're not taking my pain patches." He didn't say anything. The silence stretched out like an ocean between us. I watched her take a shaky breath, then walk past both of us, her eyes avoiding mine, avoiding his. She sat down in her recliner in the living room and stared out the window, as if this whole thing had aged her another 10 years in a single moment. I wanted to go to her, to wrap her in a blanket and say something that would make this okay, but I didn't have the words. Jason stood in the doorway, his hands buried in his hoodie, looking 10 shades of guilty and yet still not saying sorry. The rest of the night felt like a funeral. Not for Mom, but for whatever pieces of our family were still intact. I reheated her soup in silence, but she didn't eat. Jason disappeared into the basement, and we didn't speak again that day. Or the next. Everything changed in that moment. I still can't believe he did it, even now. Not just the theft, but the way he looked me in the eye and admitted it like it was no big deal. Like Mom's pain meant less than whatever mess he'd gotten himself into. I'd always known Jason was reckless. But I didn't know he was heartless. And that's a kind of betrayal you don't come back from. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee going cold and a dozen tabs open on my laptop. Sleep hadn't come easily. I'd spent half the night replaying Jason's twisted confession in my head, and the other half wondering how long it had been going on. How long had he been stealing from her? How deep was he in? By noon, I had my answer, or at least a glimpse of it. It started with a gut feeling and a glance through Mom's bank statements. She'd given me limited access to help pay her bills, but something had fell off for weeks, her medications arriving late, her phone service briefly disconnected, even a hospital appointment that had to be rescheduled because the payment hadn't cleared. I sorted through the bank history and saw them. Withdrawals. Not just one or two, but several over the past 3 months. Some as high as $600. And all from the ATM near River Ridge Casino. My stomach twisted. I needed proof. Real proof. So I drove out to River Ridge myself, a place I hadn't seen since we were kids, and our dad used to drive past it muttering, "That place ruins lives." I waited in the parking lot for nearly an hour, and sure enough, Jason walked out just after 5 in the afternoon. Hoodie up, hands in pockets, pacing like a man with something to lose. He didn't see me. Back home, I sat with Mom while she tried to nap, her breathing shallow, her body thinner than it had been just weeks ago. I wanted to tell her everything, but her face looked too fragile to hold more bad news. So I waited. But I knew I couldn't hold it in much longer. That night, While Jason was rummaging through the pantry in the kitchen, I walked in and shut the door behind me. He turned, startled, with a half-eaten granola bar in hand. "You scared the hell out of me." "I went through Mom's bank records," I said flatly. He froze. "I know about the withdrawals. I know you've been using her debit card to take out cash. And I followed you to River Ridge today. You've been gambling." Jason ran a hand through his hair. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You're using Mom's money to pay off loan sharks while she's fighting cancer." "I didn't mean for it to get this bad," he said, his voice breaking for the first time. "I thought I could win it back. Just one good night, and I'd put it all back." I stared at him, my hands trembling. "Do you even hear yourself? You stole from your dying mother." Jason leaned against the counter, eyes wide, shaking. "I didn't know what else to do. I owe over 10 grand. They've threatened me." I was desperate. Then I started using the patches to sell, just to keep them off my back. He dropped the granola bar and slid down to the floor like the weight of his choices had finally caught up to him. "I hate myself," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "I hate what I've become." I didn't move. Part of me wanted to console him. The other part wanted to throw him out right then and there. "You need help," I said eventually. "But not here. Not while she's suffering." "I know. You can't stay, Jason. You need to go. Tonight." He wiped his face, nodded slowly, and didn't argue. Within an hour, he was gone. He packed a single duffel bag, didn't say goodbye to Mom, and left through the side door without making a sound. For a few days, there was peace. The tension lifted. Mom and I sat together more. I made her favorite soups, watched old reruns of her favorite shows, and helped her write out a new list of medications and treatment schedules. But the damage had already been done. Her insurance wasn't covering the latest treatment her doctor recommended, and the savings she thought she had were gone. The withdrawals had eaten through nearly all of it. I was trying to work out an installment plan with the hospital, but appointments kept getting pushed back. Each delay chipped away at her energy and hope. One morning, I walked into her room to find her struggling to sit up, her lips pale, eyes glazed with pain. I called the nurse, then the doctor, then the cancer center. But they all told me the same thing. She was declining fast, and time was no longer on our side. I sat by her bedside that night, her hand in mine, and wondered if Jason had any idea what he'd taken. It was nearly midnight when I heard the soft creak of the hallway floor. I'd been dozing on the couch with a book half open on my chest, the living room lights still on. At first, I thought it was Mom trying to reach the bathroom again, so I stood up and called out, "Need help?" No answer. Then I heard a drawer in the dining cabinet open, and something in me snapped awake, sharper than caffeine. I moved quietly, careful not to make a sound. When I stepped into the hallway, I saw him, Jason. In the half-light, his back was turned toward me, hunched over the side table in the corner, digging through the drawers where Mom kept her wedding ring, some cash for emergencies, and a few family heirlooms. "You've got to be kidding me," I said, my voice hard. He jumped like he'd been shot. "I didn't know you were still up. What the hell are you doing here?" I said, stepping closer. He held up his hands, a necklace dangling from one of them. "I swear I was going to put it back. I needed a few things. Just for tonight."
"No. You were stealing again."
"From Mom. After everything." "I didn't have a choice," he shouted, his voice cracking. "They said they'd kill me if I don't pay up by tomorrow. I owe them $6,000, and they're not bluffing. Please, just let me take a few things. She won't even notice. She's barely awake half the time." I stepped in front of him. "Put it all down and get out." He dropped the necklace, but his eyes didn't leave mine. "Please. You don't understand what they'll do to me. I'll die." "You already killed something," I said quietly. "You killed her trust. Her peace. You're not walking out of here with anything." His face twisted with panic. "I'm your brother. You stopped being that the day you stole her pain meds." I pulled my phone from my pocket. His eyes widened. "Please, just don't," he whispered. "One more chance. Just one." I dialed anyway. "Hello, yes. I'd like to report a break-in." Jason's shoulders slumped. His hands fell to his sides. For the first time, he looked tired. Not guilty. Not ashamed. Just empty. Before the dispatcher could finish taking my information, I heard her. "Please," came a whisper from behind us.
Mom.
She was standing there in her robe, her oxygen tube trailing behind her, her hands trembling around the frame of her bedroom door. Her eyes were wide with fear, her voice barely above a breath. "Don't fight."
Please, not tonight, she said.
Jason turned to her, tears running down his face. "Mom, I didn't mean to." She raised one hand. "No more. I can't take this." Her legs shook, and I rushed to steady her. She looked so fragile in my arms, like a single gust could break her in two. "I'm sorry, Mom," I whispered, "but I can't let him do this again. Not to you." She didn't say anything more, just leaned into me as I guided her back to bed. Her body felt weightless. By the time I returned to the hallway, the police were outside. Jason didn't resist. He didn't even look at me as they cuffed him and led him down the porch steps. The night fell silent again. The house felt colder than ever. In the days that followed, Mom barely spoke. She was weaker, barely eating. I made her tea, turned on her favorite music, and read to her from books we used to love as kids. But something had shifted. Her eyes were distant, like she was already half gone. One morning, she reached out for my hand and gave me the gentlest squeeze. "Can we go somewhere today?" she asked. "Just you and me. One last day." I nodded, trying to hide the sting in my throat. I packed a blanket, her meds, and a small lunch. We stopped by the old ice cream shop near the lake, the one we used to visit after school when I was little and Jason still had a heart. She ordered mint chocolate chip, her favorite, and sat in the passenger seat with the cone in her hand like it was the most precious thing in the world. Afterward, we went to the park. She watched the kids play on the swings and smiled faintly. We talked about summers spent on that very grass, playing tag, and watching the clouds drift by. I reminded her of the time we brought home a stray puppy and hid it in the shed for 2 days, before she found out. She laughed, a soft, rasping sound that made my eyes burn. When the sun began to set, she leaned her head against my shoulder and closed her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, "for staying, for seeing me." We didn't talk about Jason. We didn't talk about the pain. That day wasn't for that. It was just for us. That night, after our day out, I tucked Mom into bed with the softest blanket I could find. She looked exhausted, her skin pale and paper-thin, but there was a calmness in her eyes I hadn't seen in a long time. I turned off the main light, leaving the small lamp glowing beside her. Just as I started to leave, she reached for my hand. "Stay with me a while," she said. I nodded and pulled the old armchair closer to her bed, the one she used to sit in when I was sick as a kid. "I need to tell you something," she said softly, her voice rasping. "I don't think I have much time left." I swallowed hard and nodded, gripping her hand. She gave me a faint smile. "Before I go, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Forgive your brother." I opened my mouth to protest, but she squeezed my fingers gently. "Not for him. For you." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. There was too much anger, too much damage. But she wasn't done. "There's something I never told you," she whispered. "About your father." I leaned in, confused. "You were so young when he left. Jason was barely 5. I told you he abandoned us. That he didn't care. That he chose his addiction over his family." She paused, her eyes searching mine. "That wasn't true. Not all of it." I stared at her. "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath. "Your father was an addict. That part was real. But he didn't leave us. I made him go. I kicked him out the night I found him passed out on the kitchen floor with a needle still in his arm. Jason saw it. He was hiding behind the hallway door. I didn't want that to be his memory of his dad." She looked away, her voice shaking. "I told him his father went to work far away. I told you he left us. But the truth is he didn't want to leave. He begged me to let him stay. He said he'd change. But I didn't believe him. I didn't want you both growing up in that chaos." I sat frozen in my chair, the words hitting like waves. I thought I was protecting you, she said. I thought if I erased the truth, the cycle would break. But maybe Jason inherited more than just his name. Tears slid silently down her cheeks. He's not evil. He's just lost. Like his father was. I didn't know what to say. My mind spun. I had spent years hating a man I thought had walked away from us, only to learn he had been cast out for our safety. And now my brother, whom I thought had chosen destruction, might have been carrying a darkness none of us ever knew how to help him fight. I should have told you sooner, she said, her eyes fluttering. But I didn't want you to see me differently. I knelt beside her and placed my forehead gently against her arm. I don't. She smiled, eyes full of sadness and something deeper, relief, maybe. Promise me you'll try to forgive him, that you won't carry this pain like I did. I didn't answer right away, but eventually I nodded. I'll try. She closed her eyes. That's all I ever wanted. We stayed there in silence, my hand wrapped around hers, until her breathing slowed.
She didn't speak again that night.
3 days later, Mom passed away in her sleep. Peacefully, quietly, with the sun rising just outside her window. The house was still. Even the air felt different, like it knew something was missing. I sat alone on the edge of her bed, holding the last letter she'd written me. It was short. Just a few lines in her shaky handwriting. I loved you more than anything. Thank you for being my strength. Let go of the anger.
Choose peace.
Love always, Mom. I folded the letter and tucked it into my pocket. And for the first time in weeks, I cried, not just for losing her, but for everything we never said and everything we finally did. The day of Mom's funeral felt unreal, like I was moving through someone else's life. The chapel was quiet, filled with soft murmurs and the rustle of tissue paper. Friends, neighbors, and a few distant relatives filled the pews, but I couldn't focus on their faces. My eyes kept drifting to the polished casket at the front, draped in the white lilies she always loved. Then I saw him. Jason, broad and wearing handcuffs, escorted by 2 officers. He looked thinner, his hair unkempt, his eyes hollow. As he walked in, our gazes met, and it felt like being punched in the chest. The officers let him sit near the back, far enough from the front to avoid causing a scene, but close enough that I could still hear his voice when he finally spoke during the reception after the burial. I didn't get to say goodbye, he said quietly, walking up to me outside under the gray sky. I turned to face him. You don't get to say goodbye. You already said everything with your actions. I know, he whispered. I know I ruined everything.
I'm sorry.
Please, You don't get to ask for forgiveness today, I snapped. You stole from her. You lied to her. And you broke her heart when it was already struggling to beat. I loved you once, Jason. I trusted you. But I don't know who you are anymore. His face crumpled. I just wanted. I don't care what you wanted, I said. You don't get to rewrite it now. You weren't there when she took her last breath. You don't get to be here and act like you were. I turned and walked away before I could break down in front of him. That was the last time I saw Jason in person. In the weeks that followed, I buried myself in logistics, packing Mom's things, closing out accounts, handling paperwork. But grief has a way of sneaking in through the cracks. I started therapy not long after. I didn't want to become hollow, with rage the way I saw my mother become when Dad left. I didn't want Jason's actions to be the shadow that followed me for the rest of my life. The letters began coming a month into his sentence. All from the county jail. All in his messy handwriting. He started with updates, his job in the kitchen, how he was trying to stay clean, how the nights were long. Then came the apologies. Long, rambling, filled with regret and justifications and half-remembered childhood memories. He begged me to write back. I read every single one, but I never replied. When I found out from a mutual friend that Jason had been hospitalized after a fight in jail, I felt nothing. Not relief. Not concerned. Just a hollow kind of silence. He was alive.
And that was enough for me.
Months passed. I began to heal. The weight in my chest slowly started to lift. Some mornings, I could look at her photo and smile instead of crying. Then one evening, I came home to find one last letter on my doorstep. It was different. Shorter. Shakier. I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me.
I sat with it for a long time.
My fingers traced the edges. The paper was worn, like he'd folded and unfolded it a dozen times before sending it. That night I wrote back. I didn't say much. Just a few lines. I forgive you. Not because you earned it. Not because I've forgotten. But because I need to let go. This will be our last exchange. I wish you peace.
Goodbye.
I sealed the envelope, walked to the mailbox in the quiet dark, and dropped it in. For the first time in over a year, I felt light. Not healed. Not whole. But free. And that was enough.